Hey everybody, Dr. Rick Wallace here dropping in on you. Hope everybody is off to a wonderful weekend, whatever it is you do on the weekend. Normally I'm working, but there's a lot going on with the family right now, so I'm not able to work at the current moment. Got a lot going on. Eventually I'll fill you guys in, but what I do want to talk to you about is where we are as a community and why we consistently fail at moving forward and finding progress despite being some of the most brilliant people on the planet. We fail in so many ways. Number one is we fail to understand how things work. We fail to understand the role we play in our own reality. We fail to know who we are. We tend to trust the wrong people. And the list goes on. But let me tell you something where I'm at right now. And I want to invite you into my world real briefly. I have been an entrepreneur and a business owner vast predominance of my life. I had the blessing of doing some professional, some work as a professional athlete, nothing major, nothing to brag about. But it was something that I went back and pursued because I felt like I needed to do it, and I did, and so I'm proud of that. But it played a very little role in all of the things I've done. But I've owned businesses for over 30 years ago. Started my first business, not counting all the stuff I did through middle school and high school. You know, I cut yards from 11 years old. I learned how to sew for my grandmother, and I tapered jeans, which was the big thing back in the 80s. Tapered and ironed and starched jeans with homemade starch. I did all the things back, the thing back in the 80s when I was in high school. Did all that and got paid for it. Did haircut. Eventually went to cosmetology school. Did my 1,500 hours, opened up a shop. Never did anything myself, but I always wanted it, and I wanted my own license. Just some things to line up accomplishments. But my first major business, my first legitimate business where we had everything set up as a business, bank account, all that stuff, was Stay Fit Fitness and Training, which is now Master Fitness 21. Yes, 30-something years later, and that business is still up and going and profitable. Health and fitness was my first love. Psychology is simply an extension of that, and it was where I chose to hang my hat. And the Visionetics Institute is where I do the vast majority of my work in helping people empower themselves, help people heal from trauma, help people deal with depression, and a bunch of other things. And this is what I do professionally. I have used my skill set to study the plight of Black people for years, decades. I wanted to learn why there was an elevated level of violence and or even a hyper violence among our young Black males. So I studied it, and I did research. I completed studies, and I came to the conclusion that our young men aren't properly socialized. I was able to stand on the backs of some greats like Dr. Howard Stevenson, University of Pennsylvania, Dr. Joy DeGruy, University of Portland, who's probably more popular or more well known for her book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. But my goal has always been able to understand. I've written papers on disproportionality and special education for young Black males. Did a position paper on that. I've done papers on, literally thousands, actually, of papers on the plight of Blacks or serial forced displacement. Everybody talks about gentrification, but it didn't begin with gentrification. You can go back as far as redlining and serial forced displacement, redlining, urban renewal, benign neglect. Just some ways that Blacks have been consistently pushed out and forced out and not allowed to gain resources or assets that would contribute to wealth building. And even when we did, they found ways to push us out of that. I've talked about all of that, but here's some things that we need to understand. While there have been consistently in our space, different machinations and mechanisms created by a system to hold us back, to set us back, to keep us at bay. We have not helped ourselves by, number one, failing to unify. When asked the greatest threat to U.S. security, probably in the 60s. Why am I drawing a blank? But J. Edgar Hoover was asked in the 60s the greatest threat to national security, and his response was black unity. At the time, he was speaking specifically of the Black Nationalist Party and the Black Panther Party. Anytime that there has been an attempt to unify, to come together, to function as a unit, to become sufficient, self-sufficient, to become autonomous, there has been something to interrupt it. There have been laws, there have been policies, there have been practices. If you really want to understand it a little more, go read The Negro Family, A Case for National Action, written by Daniel Patrick Moynihan. Became affectionately known as the Moynihan Report. Just read some of the things that are in that report and get an understanding of how things moved and what they knew. A lot of things they're pretending they didn't know, that if you look into that report, you'll find out they did know. And it's so much more than that. And so here we are. We are now 50 years removed from then. And we're yet to unify. We're yet to come together. We're yet to find a common ground. We're more competitive, more bickerish, more hostile towards one another than any time in history. And yet we talk about black empowerment. I have pushed and pushed and pushed for support with Black Men Lead. Why? Because if we can effectively racially socialize young black males, we empower them to be the men we need them to be in their adulthood. We empower them to be protectors. We empower them to be providers. We empower them to be business owners. We empower them to be leaders in the academic world and to establish what is important for them and their families, instead of allowing a system to determine what is important for them, which really serves those who are in the position of power in that system. We consistently talk about this. I have talked about this since I came to a conclusion in my research that we can literally reduce violence in our community by 70% by simply properly socializing the young males in that community before they become socialized into violence and rapid behavior and a misunderstanding of manhood. That's our responsibility, actually. Even if we weren't in the oppressive state we're in, it would still be our responsibility to socialize our young black males. The Black Man Lead Rite of Passage Initiative was designed to do that, to teach young black males. For instance, the most simplistic of male progression, the most simplistic and natural part of male progression is a misunderstood thing to the average black male, because they don't have it modeled for them. They don't have it explained from a man who understands it. They don't have an understanding of what to expect from it. They're just experiencing it. So imagine you are born and you have a twin sister, or you have some cousins, or you have some female friends in the neighborhood. You're the same age y'all grew up, and up until around about 9, 10, 11, y'all pretty much equal. Y'all can race, y'all can wrestle, y'all can do a bunch of things, and you don't really have an advantage. But all of a sudden, something starts to change. You start to go through puberty. Your body starts to generate testosterone. All of a sudden, there's an increase in strength. There's an increase in muscle mass. Your voice becomes deeper, and you become a little more edgy. You're a little more aggressive than you were at first. You tend to be ready to get at it if you have to. But you don't understand that. Why? Because nobody's there to explain it to you. See, the problem is there's supposed to be somebody there to explain it to you. There's supposed to be somebody there. They say, look, right at this particular point, when you start to get stronger than she is, it's not meant to dominate her. It's for you to be able to protect her. That aggression that you feel, that natural willingness to go scrap if you have to, that's to make sure you're willing to use that new strength you have to protect her and yourself and your children and all of those things. Then there is a responsibility beyond protecting. But the first thing you will become is a protector, because that's the first advantage you will gain is you will grow in strength, and you will grow in muscle mass, and you will grow in a willingness to be able to get after it. But she's not the target. Anyone who causes harm to your area, your community, the place where you reside is the person that's supposed to be aimed at. And you meet force with equal force or greater force. That is something they need to understand. Then they need to understand the importance of taking care of their progeny. They need to understand the importance of rising to the level of not allowing people to come into the community and wreak havoc in the community. But more importantly, financial responsibility. Instead of waiting on somebody to give them opportunity, they need to learn how to take control of their lives and create for themselves, to prepare themselves to be providers. It's so much more that goes along with this. I've been asking for support, and it has been. We started a fundraiser, man, 3 months ago. It was a small fundraiser. It was for a week. It was for $10,000. You can imagine with something with efforts pointing at $10,000. You can imagine how much. I mean, efforts pointed at a national audience. You can imagine the cost of it, and you can understand that $10,000 won't go for it. But let me tell you what I'm facing. You know, with having male progeny, you know, the youngest one is coming on up. So I'm about to have all of them out of the house soon. The last one out of the house soon. But having a male progeny, and then there's this big thing going on. I don't know if it's going on in all over the world, all over the country, but I know it's big in Houston and in Texas. They're still in catalytic converters. A lot of the ones doing this are children. Well, 3 young black teenagers just killed a sheriff's deputy because he walked out of Walmart with his wife off duty and caught them stealing his catalytic converter from under his truck. And he went to approach him about it, and they started opening fire on him. Luckily, he had his firearm, and he returned fire, hitting 2 of them. Luckily, they survived. 1 got away cleanly, but they caught him. But everybody's life screwed up now. You got a man who was simply trying to go to the store with his wife, who has left a family behind. You've got 3 boys whose families are going to be completely devastated because they're going to hide them. And I know this sheriff's department, you killed a sheriff's deputy, and you're going to be residing in the sheriff's department for at least a year before your trial comes up. So it's just so many things, and we can put a halt to life. There are going to be some people that are just going to do stuff. I get that. I'm not arguing with that. There are going to be people that are going to do stuff, but I'm telling you, a lot of this stuff can change. But we're going to have to be willing to put in the work. We're going to have to be willing to get out there and actually take action. I could talk about this a lot, but I just wanted to really put that out there. There's so much going on that, I'm constantly having to guard myself. And we don't live in a horrible place, but it's obviously it's time for us to get somewhere else. But on that note, look, I'm gonna get ready to get out of here. But I had to talk to you about that. Look, show some love, show some support. We need your support. We need your help. The link to show your support is in the description box or the post box, wherever you see this at. It's also, you can give through the organization's Cash App account, which is the $, capital THE, capital ODY, SSEY, capital PROJECT 21. On that note, I'm out of here.